Hey folks, Amy from Colorado Mountain Living with another video from Vermont. So I mentioned in last video that there was a couple of projects going on here at my parents' homestead, and one of them was doing golf greens. So when you have golf as a hobby and you really like to play and you really want to practice and get better, and you got a lot of land and a lot of grass, I guess you could think that a reasonable project might be making your own greens. So anyway, it's a project that my dad got started, and I wanted to show you how it's coming along, sort of what went into it, and I don't know, see what you guys think as far as what would it be like to have your own greens in your backyard, and what does it take to sort of, you know, get that to work for you? Is that something that's a work in progress forever? Is that something you can use immediately? So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a review about making golf greens on your own property. So one thing that you can see is that there's a lot of land right here. We've got a backyard. We've called it the meadow because for years it was a little bit of a meadow for horses. My parents had raised horses for several years. They don't have any right now. They kind of got out of that business. But what remains is this, you know, nice open field that was here when they purchased the land, and they just tended this field, left it, grew hay on it, and now it's going to be the basis of golf greens. You know, a lot of open grass here. And there's 4 areas that they've converted into little T sections, and I'm going to show you what those look like. So the whole process got started last fall, and the first step was to plow up the entire meadow. The meadow is about 3 acres in size, and here you've got Dad on the tractor with plow attachment just tearing up the grass. So this was the pre-existing grass, and they're prepping the meadow, turning that into the basic fairway. So that is the first step, is making the fairway greens, and the first step of getting into that is plowing up the existing grass. So after the plowing comes the wheel harrowing. That's a larger size tractor. A friend came out to help them, and then also with the skid steer, you know, that process kicks up a lot of rocks, so using the skid steer to sort of collect rocks there. But the wheel harrowing really turns up the soil quite a bit, loosens up a lot of the rocks. And you can imagine after that process is complete, you got to go around picking up all your rocks. And so that's what you're doing here with the skid steer itself. And then one more step is rototilling. So you think you've turned up enough soil, but the rototilling really smooths things out, especially after the rocks are out of the way. And Dad's here with my niece, and here we are seeing them get a couple bumps in there from a few rocks, but this really smooths out the surface. It almost ends up smoother than a regular golf green by the end of it. So one thing I don't have a photo of is the seeding. So the seeding happens after the ground is ready. And then after the seeds go in, you do all the rolling here. This is actually the roller that Dad uses for packing down snow trails for skiing. So it's a big heavy roller, big wooden drum here. That packs in all the seeds after you spread them out. Don't remember the kind of seed specifically, but apparently the wild turkeys like it. Here, Mom was able to catch wild turkeys, and they've hardly seen them over the years, but ever since they put in that fresh grass seed, don't you know, they've been out on the fields trying to pick that grass seed out. Well, and it didn't take long for Dad to do an upgrade on the roller here. So this one is much heavier. I want to say it's like a half-ton roller. It's this very steel roller, so much heavier, really packs the grass seed in, but the other purpose of the roller is also for weed suppression, apparently. So you want to keep that ground really, really tight and packed. So there's the old roller, the wooden one, but this one he's going to be using a lot more for the greens as well. So that was all the preparation for the fairway. Now the next thing that's coming up are the greens, the preparation for the greens. So you can kind of see just comparing the grass in the middle of the field here, and then this lighter color grass, this specialty seed, the greens. It's still a little bit damp from the dew, and this is another tricky part, is that you really risk burning your grass this time of year because you get hot weather, and then as the water stays on it, you get that magnifying effect from the sun, and it can really toast your greens. So It's tricky to figure out the watering times. You want to be able to water it regularly, but you have to do it at dusk. And you really hope that you get a lot of evaporation before the sun comes out, because you don't want to get that yellowing of the grass. So you almost see it right there, a little bit of yellowing. You really don't want to have that happen. So one thing that Dad did was take the well. So the well is right there. You can kind of see it in front of the truck there. So there's the well. And he dug a line out to here. So we've got a hand pump out here. And then you can see a hose going to the sprinkler over here. So he just comes out in the evenings, turns on the sprinkler, and waters the greens right here. This is the back corner. Now, right behind the green, where the well is, this is like a little tee-off area. I forget what you call it, but there is going to be, you can tell the grass is different here. It's been cultivated in this little patch next to the woods. So you would come in here and then kind of tee off into your greens here. So we've got this one, the one down by the barn. There's one over here. So when you get into the grass in the meadow, you can see there's still a lot of patchy spots. It's not all grown in all the way. That's because it's been a really dry summer. It's really hard to grow grass when you don't get the rain. This is not really an area that you can irrigate very easily. It's really hard to try to get everything equally watered. It's one thing to irrigate the greens themselves with the sprayers, but full acre is another story. So you can see here's in one of the other greens. Got the sprinkler in the middle there. There's a hose hookup down there, and you can see the weeds popping up. You can see where the weeds are at. So it's a constant battle, probably the first year or so, of trying to manage the weeds. But like I said, it's that tricky balance of pulling weeds and not destroying your green at the same time, because you're going to be pulling up clumps of dirt at the same time. So this green, he's just been using a regular yard sprinkler to water it. This, I think just because this is kind of like a high point in the ground, it's taking a little bit less than the ones that's a low point over there. So it drains a little bit more. It doesn't really retain as much water. It's a little harder to get the grass to come in over here. A lot of bare patches on this one. But that's it. We've got the four greens, really. So the one close to the house, the one out by the barn, the one in the far corner, and the one in that corner. So, could make a very enticing perk to folks that want to end up buying one of the parcels. Aren't able to tend to your greens. So these are piles here that's kind of dried up, but these are piles of weeds. You can see where the grass is really, 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 really fine, but back in here, look at all the weeds growing up. This area has been a little bit more troublesome because being next to the barn, this was a horse paddock, and it just seemed to really attract the weeds. Just a lot more fertile, perhaps, of an area. The spreading, maybe with the horses, it just really, really, really grew weeds very, very easily. So we've been working at it the past few days here, so that you can see this side of the hose pretty cleared out, but this side, look at all those weeds in there. So this is part of the job of the upkeep, is making sure that the weeds don't take hold. It doesn't take long for weeds to sort of overtake an area. They're almost easier to pull out when they're bigger, and we were trying to do a lot of the weeding right after it rained, but the one thing that happens when you do pull weeds is it pulls up definitely huge clumps of dirt at the same time, so you just get patches, pulls out a lot of your grass that you're trying to plant, and so you just end up with a patchy result.
So at this point, one of the more major maintenance is the weeding. So at this point, the greens aren't really ready yet, can't really use them, but just in getting them established, it's doing lots of weeding. So definitely helping out with that big job. Some of them are pretty significantly sized, but it's a full-time job. You usually try to go out there in the evening times to pick out all the weeds. But we're making progress.
Amy helping her dad. Well, this green got away from us. We kept working on the other 3. Next thing you know, look how tall they are. Filled right in. I'm trying to weed by hand until the grass takes hold. I don't like the use of weed killers, but we may have to do that down the road.
Well, it's supposed to rain tomorrow quite a bit, so Dad's mowing the whole meadow tonight. He says it takes him about an hour to mow the whole thing. You can almost see the section down there where he did. Very dry. Hard to make your greens when it's really, really dry.
The other challenge is water, and this summer's been tough. Not a whole lot of water, but there's definitely some on the horizon, looking for a really wet weekend because of a tropical storm. So we're waiting here on the porch, waiting for it to come in, hoping to saturate our grass.
Uh-oh, getting wet! Wow, look at the rain! Look at the rain! Oh, I'm gonna get wet! Uh-oh, I'm getting wet! I'm getting wet! Woo! Woo! That's cold! Ugh! Remember my video when we were talking about the garden? So here we are in Vermont. My mom put her garden in. She said Memorial Day weekend. So look how lush everything is. We've got green beans, we've got radishes, some squash back there, beets. Beets are almost the same size, although I only have the one. And then look at all these tomatoes. Yeah, a lot of course, you know, she does do composting and probably has old piles of horse manure. So I think this was rototilled and had a lot of soil amendments put into it for boosting up the soil nutrients there. But kind of interesting just to notice that even in a climate like Vermont, where you have a shorter season and you don't really plant until Memorial Day weekend, the growth comparison is vastly different compared to our area. You know, they're practically sea level here, so maybe 200-foot elevation. And they do tend to get a lot more moisture than we do. You know, the ground retains water really well. Things stay moist, although this summer they haven't really had a whole lot going on in that department. Yeah, it'd be cool.
He hit the first try every time.
Or I don't even see where it went.
I don't know if I can do that.
Ting!
It sounded so bad.
Oh, I see it.
That hurt so bad. Don't put that one.
It's okay.
It's so hard.
Into the woods. Oh. Right through the apple tree. You took an apple off. guys, that's wraps it up for a little video expose on making golf greens out of your own backyard. So hopefully you kind of found that a little interesting. And right now it's raining, so they're getting the rain. You know, it's all kind of coming back around again, getting that moisture that they really needed for the grass for the greens to take. So it probably will take, you know, entire summer, this whole season, for those greens to really take before they can really start using that for teeing off on. But anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in, and love to hear if you guys have ever tried anything like that, maybe like a little patch of grass or greenery around your house. But yep, definitely a hobby that has its own hobbies sort of intertwined with it. So a lot of maintenance with the mowing and the weeding and the seeding and the tending of all that, making sure things stay watered. But thanks for tagging along, guys. We'll catch you next time back in Colorado. Hope to see you on the next video. Bye.